All right, we're good to go.
All right, after a little bit of delay, we're going to get back to our presentation of Lightroom masking. That's what we're doing tonight. If you are planning to be on a different flight to somewhere else, then please deplane right now. And because this one's going to Lightroom. All right, so as mentioned, we're going to be talking about masking, and I mentioned something about Photoshop and masking and layers. So let me get back to the meeting. That's what we're saying. Put this out. So does everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
Yes, and you should be seeing about 6 or 7 images.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right. I am going to pull up. Let me know if you see a image of a little girl in black and white.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. I hear myself repeated. Okay, I'm not. Okay. All right. So when we look at layers and mask, one of the things that's been around for a long time in Photoshop has been mask. And with mask, it allows us to isolate certain parts of the image or any part of the image and do things with them that we would not have to do globally. So we can do it locally. Right here, you're seeing a black and white image. And in that black and white image, we're dealing with, there is at the bottom a grayscale. And in that grayscale, there are several, there are tones there from black to white. All right. And when we talk about our first masking that we're going to deal with inside of Lightroom, the one that gives us most problems of understanding is going to be the luminosity mask. And we would talk about luminosity, we talk about the brightness of something, how dark and how light it is. And we're not talking about color. So having said that, the luminosity mask has the tones in it, and the tones have actual values. Let me move some things out of the way here. If I bring up my information palette over here, let me move another couple of things out of the way. All right, great, move that out of the way. If I bring up my information palette, which is going to be inside of, okay, it's already up. Just don't know where it is. So let me turn it off first and then bring it back up.
It's in your upper left.
Okay, I see it.
Robert.
I got it. Okay. Now, as I think, Fong did not get the invite. And she needs to get the invite, Jim. Did you hear that? Nobody heard that.
I heard you.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to her now. I don't know why she's not part of our Google group anymore. She used to be.
Jim is sending you the invite right now. Jim is sending it to you. Jim, check your email for a new invite. Yeah, check your email. From Jim. Check your email from Jim. All right. All right, bye. Yeah, she hadn't been getting the invite. Okay, back to what we were saying here. We have tones, and in Photoshop, those tones range from 0 to 255. If you see my my information palette over here, there's a set of numbers that are going across that. Like for instance, right now, the number is 12. 12 means that on the low end, from 0 to 255, 12 is somewhere in this neighborhood here. Everyone see my cursor? No?
Nope.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So in the tonal range, this value 17 is somewhere around in here. This value right here over a hat, this value is 97. It looks like it's white Oh, actually, the value is 248. I'm sorry.
48.
248. It's 248. So if we have 255, that value would be somewhere up here on the tonal range. Okay, I will, this phone talking. Somebody needs to email her that address.
Robert, I emailed it to her 30 seconds ago.
Takes a while to come in. It took me a lot, like 5 minutes. Depends on her
Okay,
computer.
so,
Robert,
Fine.
I'll call her.
okay, yeah, thanks.
Tell her hang up, I'll call her.
Leslie's calling you. All right. Okay. All right, now, so this is what number is 249, 250. So when we look at values and we're talking about luminosity, well, luminosity is one, as I mentioned, one of the easiest ways to make a selection. So if I needed to select all of the lighter tones up here, I can apply those to a number. And if I can apply those to a number, then I can make a selection. In Lightroom, let me go back to Lightroom for just a second here. In Lightroom, we have this thing called a luminous mask. And it's located in your develop module. And in that develop module, under our basic masking tools, and we have a new set now, it's a luminous mask. Let me get out of that right now and put that in the trash and then talk about what we have. And I'm going to talk about deleting this mask. And by the way, I wrote that with my mouse. So when we talk about luminous mask, as you look over in this histogram area right here, when I hover over values, those values, they don't go from 1 to 255, they go from 1 to 100. So if I hover over a value, you'll see the numbers, they'll appear right under here. And that number right now is 99.
It's 990.
No, it's 99.0.
Oh, okay.
All right, 99.0. So that's white. And we look over in this area right here, that number is 8. And 8 is closer to your black on your, if we were to equate the scale. So if you take each number and add 2.55 to it, then you'll get the, or subtract 2.55 from it, you'll get the value of what we were dealing with the Photoshop mask. That's neither here nor there, and let's get into the weeds, and that's not where I want to go. But what I wanted to do with this is to say that we can isolate tones, and one of the ways to do that is with the luminosity mask. And so if I click on my masking tool, I can select luminous range mask, and that's the one that gets us. What it means is that once you select this mask, you can pick a tone, whatever tone it is, doesn't matter. Pick a tone right here, and a mask will be produced automatically that equates to that value of that tone. And it's illustrated right here.
Robert, where did you get that picker?
The picker, which one? It's automatic. When you once you select the luminous range, it's an automatic picker.
Okay.
Automatic. So if I select something else, let's say I selected the black. So the value of that is 9. The range, and I'll talk about the range of it later in just a moment, but the value is 9. If I click right here, the value is 57. If I click right here, the value is 100. Is any of this making sense so far?
This is freaking awesome.
Okay, because, because we're able to click and select a particular tone, turn off the mask. And if we're able to select that particular tone, we can also select tones that are nearby and or are able to allow us to make a transition. Now, I mentioned about those two numbers. When I select a tone, you'll see the first number, it'll be 77. The second number is 100. What it's saying to us is that when you have a luminosity mask, it has selected this particular tone, which is right here, and it is feathered on the left side and or right side up to 100 and down to whatever value this is. Oh, the value is 51 on the left-hand side. On yes, 51, 47, yeah. 30, 29, yes. Okay, so what the second deal is, it's feathering to let you know that these parts will be included. The actual value is right here. The feather value on the opposite side is 100. Now, if I move this value on the left side, I'm excluding all of the low tones, anything that's dark. And let me illustrate that in another manner. If I was to remove this mask, I know it's getting a little confusing, but stay with me, please. I'm going to delete this mask and I'm going to apply a gradient to this. And this way we'll see the whole thing. And when I apply the gradient, I'm going to apply it to the whole entire deal right here. So everything is selected whenever you apply this gradient to the whole deal. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. With this particular mask, I'm going to do something called an intersect mask. And I'm going to do it with the luminous range. And I'm going to select, let's say, the black tones. All right, I've selected the black tones, and this is the value right here. But if I take that tone and I spread it out, it's now selecting not only the black tones, but again, all the tones once I separate it out. So in order to reduce those, I have a middle value and I have on this triangle on the other end, a spread value. And that spread value is nothing more than feathering. So I can select any particular tone. And the great thing about selecting a tone, I'll get to that in 1 second, is that that tone is movable. So if I want to select the light portions, I can select the light portions. If I want to select the dark portions, I can select the dark. So this middle piece here is a selection of tones. And right now we have 22 to 8. 8 on this side on the pen, 22 on the opposite side. And I can, again, I can reduce or widen that tone down. So I can now select anything that's in the 30 to 44 range, anything in the 63 to 69 range. And again, anything on the upper range. So this is a masking thing that Lightroom has come up with that people paid a lot of money to get inside of Photoshop. So yes, you
So,
can select.
Robert,
Yes.
can I ask, why did you put the graduated filter on?
Oh, because it covers everything.
So it tells the luminosity to cover everything.
No, luminosity is it. One of the reasons I didn't want to do it that way. Let me go back to the mask. I'm going to take the the luminosity mask and I'm going to delete it. So whenever you do a gradient, the way you did it before, if you covered a certain part of this mask, I mean with the gradient, let's see if I can pull that up, then whatever you covered would be affected. The item on the opposite side of that would not be affected. Let me separate this out. There we go. So if I was to make an exposure change here to there,
Right.
and that by making a gradient, I can actually take that and cover. Oh, I just inverted it, by the way, and take this and cover the entire image. So
Okay.
everything is affected. That's the way gradients were before.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's been introduced now is a term inside of the gradient. Is called again, it's called intersect. And one of the things that we did with this gradient map is we did a thing called intersect with, and I'll explain that in an upcoming slide coming up. But that was to illustrate what the linear gradient is doing. Not the linear gradient, but the luminosity range is doing.
So you use that intersection thing
Yeah, I use the intersection
to
thing to
take
show.
away what the gradient has covered that you don't want to be affected, correct?
Not quite, and that'll be explained in just a second. But the luminosity range is what we're working on right now. The gradient is actually just an illustration to show you how the luminous range works. So we'll get to it in one second, I promise you. Now, having said that, I'm going to take away this particular mask and delete it. And in this new deal here with the mask, you have options. And one of them is to delete all mask, which is what we've done right here. So if I was to go back to the intersect, not the intersect, the luminous range, that was the point. The point is that you get it's a blank slate over here. You also get a eyedropper, which says, I want to target something. If I want to target something, I want to target something not in the way of color, but in the way of tones. I want to I want to bring up the shadows. So I'm going to select the rock. The rock is going to give me some sort of overlay to show me what that is that I'm selecting. And here is the parameters that I've selected. From those parameters, I can now determine whether I want less of that selection by moving it inward and bringing the feathering more in place, or including more than I need, or deciding I don't want the lower tones, I actually want the opposite. I've selected all of the shadows, but I really want the highlights. So it's a powerful way of making a selection based on tonality as opposed to based on anything else.
But when you did that, Robert, okay, go back to where you had the building, where you had, yeah, and then you had the building covered too, the way you had it set up.
Yeah. Now, if you look at the building has a different set of numbers. If you look
No,
up
but
here,
when you moved your slider at what, yeah. Oh, no, yeah, go back. No, go to the left a little, or I don't know what side you're sitting on, but my left. Okay, so now, but I cover the grass or whatever that stuff is on the ground. Okay, and then if you want it, you know how you have the subtract brush?
we're not going there yet.
Okay,
We're not there yet.
okay.
Yes, I'm only selecting. This is a way of selecting.
Okay.
And it's selecting by tonal range. So if I make an adjustment, that's what it's adjusting.
So you keep saying it's tonal range, but I'm seeing this as something that instead of using a traditional gradient, if you just wanted to increase the blueness of the sky that you
That's
could,
color.
well,
I'm
that's
not talking about color. I'm talking about tone. Tone is based on luminous. Luminous is based on brightness. So we're not talking about any particular color. And one of the things about photography is that, let me go back to Photoshop for just a second. Let me show you what I mean, is that we look at things in the manner of color most of the time. So if I subtract this and give you color, you're emotionally bound. Automatically, emotionally bound. But in tonal range, you see how flat this image is. And so if you were to convert this image, or you wanted to do some dodging and burning, lightening and darkening, then you'll know the areas that need it the most or the least. Or you're even able to select the areas. I can select the darker tones, the tones that are here, because I can see them. When I look at something through a color value, I don't see those tonal values or the lightness and darkness. I'm responding again to the color of something. So if you want to be more precise about what you're doing, you look at the tonal values.
So you turned this into a black and white?
No, I turn this on only for the purpose of demonstration,
Right,
showing you where
right.
the
But
tones are.
to get the tonals, you turned it to a black and white, correct?
Yes, so I can show you what tones are. So that when we go to Lightroom, you can now see, no matter what the image is, you can then target certain tones. For instance, I want to target the lighter tones. I'm now targeting those lighter tones. And in that targeting of the lighter tones, I can then say, instead of saying, okay, that value is too bright, and what do? I can then say, if it's too bright, I can target the tonal value of that and then bring it down. And so with that, I can then bring down the highlights, bring down the exposure just a little bit. I can do a lot of things with that tonal value.
Can I pop in for a second?
Sure.
Brian, tell me if I'm off track or not, but I think maybe what Brian was getting at was you could still use this as your selection tool, but then use your adjustments over there to do color adjustments to what you have selected using luminance as a selecting method.
Absolutely.
Go over to the temperature slider and saturation, make your sky bluer, like he was asking. Is that kind of what you're asking, Brian?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yes, you can do that.
More precise than a gradient that covers, if you pull a gradient down, you cover the tree that's sticking up in front of the sky. I just want to get the sky.
Right. Yes, you can target. This is targeting a certain value range, but as Jim pointed out, you can change color, exposure, texture, clarity, whatever.
Yeah, Brian was just saying, yes, this would be a more accurate way of selecting the sky than a gradient, because it won't select the trees and buildings and things like that. That's
Sure.
the point he was making.
And the reason why it's important that you're here, Jim, is I need somebody to translate for Brian.
Right. Robert, this is Alan. He might have to translate for me.
Yeah.
Do you, when you're using this luminance mask, do you first have to do the gradient filter?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to get rid of this mask. I'm going to delete it. All right, now I'm going to get out of everything. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to select the new tool, which gives us an option of making a selection on any of the tools. That's the first thing. If I want to go to luminous range, I'll click on that first. When I do that, I get this eyedropper tool. And Alan, thank you for asking it. And it gives me an opportunity to go back to the beginning. So I get this eyedropper tool. And in this eyedropper, I can now select dark tones, light tones, and whatever. So if I wanted to target just dark tones, I click in the dark area. and it would make a selection. And in that selection, it just shows me exactly what I've selected.
So can you apply an effect, Robert, right here so that we can see what it's doing?
Oh, absolutely. So now there, once it gives you this red overlay, I can turn that off. And now you see what it's doing?
Yeah, that's a lot more helpful.
That's what it's doing. So it's and now if I don't necessarily want that to apply to all of those areas, I can now take my slider and start to reduce it from certain areas. And now I can then double click on effects in order to bring everything back to 0. And then decide, and by the way, that's show overlay. You can turn that on and off. And just as a side note, if I don't like red, I can double click on that, get this box up, and I can make this magenta or purple. You make it any color you like. Whatever you like as far as seeing the mask. Having said that, I have no adjustments here, but in this mask, if I want to target just the opposite of this, I can then move this mask along the way to the opposite side and select everything but the shadows.
Is there a way to copy so you can make some changes to one selection and another change to the opposite selection?
Yes, you can copy a mask, but I can also adjust the mask I have. And the question that you want to know is, can I duplicate this mask and invert it?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Yes.
Yes. So you can take this mask. You can then, if I right click on it, I can duplicate mask. If I don't want to right click on it, I have my, I forget what you call these things.
Little dots,
They call them something else though.
dots.
I can also duplicate the mask here. If I duplicate, go ahead.
Called ellipsis.
Ellipsis. I don't like that name, but okay. If I get the mask here, I go to luminous right here. The moment I go to luminous, there's a button over here that says invert. And now you have a second mask that you're able to invert. Does that answer your question, Brian?
It's just freaking awesome.
But what
No.
would it work on there, Robert? Can you apply a doohickey to that?
Oh, it's working on the opposite set of tones. So I'm applying it. And by the way, it gets this overlay. I can always turn that off.
Robert, yeah, that overlay will turn off as soon as you make an adjustment.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it will. But and for the sake of showing it, I'm going to now lower the temperature.
Okay,
There it is.
so you duplicated the mask and inverted it.
Yes. Now that was just to answer Brian's question.
Right, right.
Okay. So having said that, I want to move to the next deal. And the next deal is, that was the luminosity range. I want to move to the next one, which is going to be, let's see, what are we going to call this? Wait a minute, this is the wrong one. This is the right one. Okay, there you go. Select subject. Now, in this case, Lightroom has incorporated a select subject module. And in that module, you will go down just like you did before. I'm going to get rid of this mask. This mask, by the way, is only to do the writings. So I'm going to get rid of the mask. Right click on it, delete all mask. And we're back to where we were at the beginning. This is the beginning. This is a raw file. So I'm going to tell, I'm going to ask Lightroom, select my subject for me. And in that mask, I'm going to turn it off, go to it, select my subject. Hey, give me a subject. I don't care what it is. And it's analyzing. There's a little analyzing button that's down here and refining its result. And in that, I have, and by the way, I'm going to change the color over here so that we can actually see it a little bit better. Yeah, there you go. I think that works for me. Okay. We all can see the mask that it's created. But I don't necessarily want the subject. I want all of this other stuff that isn't the subject based on what I'm about to do. So I can then take that mask and invert it over here, like we did just a second ago. And now everything but the Lightroom's choice of subject is selected. And that's exactly in this case what I want, because what I wanted to do was bring up the shadows. And as I think Alan mentioned that I can move the slider. The moment I move the slider, are we able to see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, the moment I move the slider, then everything came up that I wanted, which is the opposite of the subject that is selected. So I needed to bring up those shadows there in order to illustrate what I needed to have done here.
Robert, can you show me how to just how to detract or subtract from that mask?
Not yet. But that's coming up. That's coming up in one of these deals here. All right. So I have now brought up the shadows. I can also bring up the exposure because the mask itself, that one that's up here, we can look at that mask. And by the way, let me show you a couple of ways of looking at it. That mask that's up top, if I select down here, overlay mode, I can look at that mask in a black and white sense. And let me show overlay. And that's what it's selecting. Traditionally, white is what's going to be affected and black is what's going to be not affected. So that's what's happening as far as what you can see. I can also choose to have it black would be good in this case. I will have a image on white. There you go. So whatever is not selected is in white. The other one is in black. And I can have it the opposite way, white on black, just that's what you saw earlier. And then I can have image on black and white, which means the only thing that is selected is going to be in color, and the things that are not selected is going to be in black. But this wouldn't be a good image to do it. So I'm going to go back to my color overlay, which is telling me what is selected. Now, having said that, I'm going to move forward to the next one. And that's going to be select sky. And yes, we're going to come up to what was asked earlier about the subtraction and the addition. So the select sky is another new feature. And I think this is the one that Lynn loves the most. And I'm going to get rid of this mask again by the way, I can turn that little eyeball on and off. But I'm going to get rid of this mask by deleting all mask and go to the feature again. Again, turn that off. This is what we normally see. Click on the mask selections, select sky. And it's doing its analyzing, and it does a damn good job. Let me go in to this tree here and see how it's selected between the trees. Did a really good job of that. I didn't even notice that.
I haven't mentioned this before, but this is freaking awesome.
Brian, you keep telling me that it is. It's not awesome. I'm awesome for presenting it. Okay. Having said that, but look just how I'm holding down the space bar, by the way, clicking and dragging. It did a really, really nice job of selecting the sky. And this was an easy one to deal with. I'm holding down the space bar again, clicking one time. And by doing so, I can now affect the sky by lowering the exposure, adding some blue to it, adding some contrast. And then after I do that, I can then duplicate this mask. Now that I've duplicated it, click on the sky portion right here, the sky mask, and invert it. Now I have the bottom half that I can, and by the way, it applied, everything that I did is applied to that new mask. So if I did some contrast, exposure, and all that, it has applied it. But we don't want to do that same application. So I'm gonna double click on effects, bring it back to neutral or normal, and I'm gonna apply something different to it. I'm gonna increase the shadows, give it a little bit of vibrance. Actually, we don't have vibrance, I mean, we have saturation. Give it a little bit of saturation there. And there you have it with your sky selection. So we've selected the sky and inverted the sky to in order, duplicated it and inverted it in order to affect both parts of the image.
So you have to duplicate the sky in order to invert it.
No, you do not. I'm going to turn off this mask. And this is the one we made. And I'm going to make a new one. And to make a new one, I'm going to hit the plus symbol and select subject. Select sky. It's going to analyze. Now it's selected the sky automatically. All I have to do is go over here, hit the invert button. I don't have to duplicate.
Okay.
And there you go.
Okay. So on that mask, to go back to my question that has yet to be answered,
It
sir.
won't be answered on this one either.
I'm going to mute myself.
Robert, I see a little bleeding over of the sky, of the mask. It bleeds over into the sky a little bit there.
Yes.
That's why I want to
Yes.
subtract.
Yes, I know that. I know that.
Oh.
The thing is very good at selecting the sky. However, it is not, because we have inverted it. We've simply did just the opposite of what it was selecting. So if there's a bleed over, there was a bleed over before we inverted it.
Yes, there was.
Right. So right here.
And yeah,
And
and
so-
right into the trees and even into the person that was on the trail there. I think I saw some of the person standing there was colored also.
Yes. And that's a term that we don't use anymore.
Good
I
one.
have a question. But when all these changes first came out, I listened to an online tutorial, and this person suggested that taking and increasing the opacity of the mask, which you can do, you can change the color, but he felt that increasing the opacity all the way up would help you when you got to the points of subtracting and adding. That would be more helpful to be able to see the mask better. I wondered how you felt about that, if it was important or.
Well, we're talking about an introduction to what masking is.
Right.
That's what
right.
we're talking about. So once you understand masking, there are all kinds of options. So what
Sure.
you were referring to, Sylvia, was this value down here. So
Right.
yes, I can increase that value, and you'll see, Jack, that it bleeds over.
Right.
So if it bleeds over in a selection and we are inverting that selection, that's why you
It's
get
gonna
it.
bleed there.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but the reason I mentioned it is because you were extolling how wonderful this thing was, but I see a lot of bleeding over. It's not that good, is it?
Oh, absolutely. It's good, because if you had to select it by yourself, you'd have to go into these trees over here and start punching holes. So it's getting you in the ballpark, and what you're doing is you have an advocate as far as trying to figure out subtraction from Diana. Now you two are working together to get me there before I'm ready to get there yet.
Okay. Oh, so there's a way to deal with that bleeding. Is that what you're
Yeah.
telling me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I can wait.
It's that subtract thingy next to the add thing.
Diana, I'm gonna make you a co-host next time. Okay. All right. So we now have an understanding of what can be selected and how it's inverted. So let's move on. Select plus invert minus or subtract luminous range plus adding a subtraction brush. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
About to say what?
Okay. In this case, we are I'm going to get rid of this mask. And I think what I did right here is I'm saying select plus invert, then minus luminous range, and then select the sky, invert, minus luminous. I can't remember what it is I'm supposed to do, but it's okay. I am going to now get rid of this mask that says select. And by the way, if I turn this on and off, that's what you're getting. I love the fact that I can write with a mouse. All right, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to delete this mask. Great. Now I'm going to do that very thing that we just finished talking about. I'm going to select the sky. Turn this off, turn this on, just so you know how we got there. Select sky. And it's analyzing. And in this case, I'm going to add a luminous range, meaning I've already selected the sky, and I'm going to introduce you to this thing that I did earlier. It's called intersect with. And you'll find it on the main mask, and it's called intersect mask with. Now, what that means is that we have made a selection. The sky is the selection. Now, that is the overall selection. Now we want to tell it what else do we want to select. Now, actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. That's the next one. On this particular one, I am going to add to a luminous range. So intersect, and let's take out this part right here. I'm going to add to, which is right here, and I'm going to add a luminous range. What luminous range do I want? I actually really want this value right here to be added to it, that value. So I'm going to select that value, and whoa, it selected all of that. Well, it selected all of that, and I don't want all of that. I only want this range value, which is about 62 or so in the value, whereas all of these are below that. I'm looking at these numbers right up here, by the way, and that's a 62, 68, and I don't want this value right here, 57, 54. I don't want those values. So what I'm going to do in this luminous range, I am going to, notice how I gave you a feather. I'm going to subtract that feather out. Now I've subtracted a lot of it coming from here, but I'm going to subtract even more. And now I'm left with this part down here. Well, I don't want that either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract, back to that word, subtract using a brush. I think brushes are very easy. So I have my minus, it's a minus brush, if you see it. And I don't mean, oh yeah, it is a minus brush, and we're about to give it the minus touch.
How did you make it a minus brush versus a positive plus?
Over here, it's a subtract.
Subtract and add.
I got
Once
it.
you say subtract, it becomes a minus brush.
Okay, I got it.
So now I'm going to give it my minus touch.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to click one time, I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to click again. Made a straight line. I'm going to increase by rolling my mouse, and I'm going to now paint away the other parts that I don't need.
So tell me, this is fantastic again. How did you make the straight line? I didn't catch that.
That's only because I didn't throw it.
Okay.
Okay. In order to make a straight line inside of Lightroom, Photoshop, just about any program, if you click once, right, I'm gonna do the opposite right here. Click once, hold down the shift key, click again, it makes a straight line.
Okay.
And Brian,
Yeah.
you can even do that in Windows. I know I'm sarcastic. I know it's terrible, terrible, terrible thing. So I now have my sky, plus I added a luminous range, plus I subtracted using a brush. And now I can make my adjustment. In this case, I am going to bring down the highlights first. I'm going to add a little bit of contrast. I'm going to bring up the exposure just a tiny bit in that area alone. So I have not affected the trees at all. Lightroom has selected the sky for me. I added this little section there because I thought that the luminous value of these two should be very similar.
And on that note, I want to, if you'll allow me, go back and address what Jack was referring to with the bleed over when it selects the sky. Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you select the sky, Jack, that's using the artificial intelligence algorithm, and some of that bleed over is intentional. The AI model is actually looking at elements that it believes are affected by the sky, things that should be affected when you adjust the sky, that would be that it thinks are reflections or areas that are picking up the color of the sky, so that if you make adjustments to the sky, it also makes corresponding adjustments in those bleed over areas to help keep the realism level as it should be.
Including that guy that was walking on the trail?
Well, it's not always, it's not always perfect,
Okay.
but that bleed over is in a sky selection. Some of that bleed over you see is intentional in the part of the AI modeling.
I understand. And that makes sense. Sure.
As I mentioned, I am nobody without Jim.
And actually, Robert was expanding on that by what he did here was he actually expanded, the bleed into the water, because the bleed was not enough. And everything he just demonstrated was expanding the bleed into the water that should pick up what happens to the sky.
Right.
So having said all of that, and thank you very much, Mr. Jim, your check is in the mail, as Jim McWilliams would say. Now that becomes my subtract, but we're gonna get a little bit more into this. We're going at a good clip. The next one we're gonna do is going to be the linear grad intersects with luminous range.
Hey, Robert, now I know that you guys are recording this and you're taking away this linear, you're putting you're taking away the writing, but on the recording, it's going to show what you've done or what it is that we're looking for, correct?
Yes, I mean, it's recording everything you see.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so having said that, linear grad and intersect with luminous range. Okay, now this is where I wanted to go with you guys about the intersect. That's the big new thing. And let's explain exactly what it's doing. I'm going to apply a linear gradient, and I'm going to get rid of this first. And I'm going to delete it. And I think the repetition will hopefully help you see where I'm going to do these things. I mean, where I'm going in order to delete. I'm going to apply a linear gradient to the entire photograph as we did before. Now, I don't need to select the sky. What I want to select is the water. That's what I want, the water. Now, I could do a luminous range, but I'm going to show you about what intersect actually is. So if I go and apply, let's see, I'm going to do my deal here, turn it off, turn it back on again. And I don't have to turn it off and turn it on. I do that in order to say, this is where I start. So I'm going to do a linear gradient. And I'm going to do it again, as we did it earlier, across the entire photograph.
Did you mean to include the sky too?
I did.
Okay.
Now, that I want the photograph, I want the water in the photograph. The gradient is telling me where to go. It's saying go out throughout this whole photograph right here, everything about this photograph, and look for what I'm about to ask for, which is the intersect. Intersect means exactly what is it I want in that entire photograph. And in this case, I am going to want the, what did I say, range mask?
Luminance.
Luminous mask, that's what it is. Okay, I am going to, up top here, intersect mask with
Luminance range.
luminous range. Well, why do I want the luminous range? Because I only want the water. The water has a brightness value in here that I am looking to isolate. So in that luminous range, again, I get my eyedropper tool, and I don't have to have the mask on. I can turn it off, and I can go over here and I go, boom, that right there. See it?
Yeah.
And in that, I can subtract. What do you think I can subtract here?
The sky.
Why?
So it didn't do a fully great job, because look at these branches that we have.
So now you can, now you hit the subtract button, no?
I can continue to subtract. And in this case, I'm going to subtract with a
Brush.
Brush.
absolutely. And take a brush, and I simply go over this area that I don't need. And I love the brushes because, I mean, they're easy. We're used to, sorry, oh geez, Command Z. Okay, they're easy. And by the way, when you do a Command Z or Control Z, it gets rid of that whole deal that you just made with the brush. So I actually have to go back and subtract the brush again. So if just so you know, if the whole thing goes away, it's because when you do a Control Z or undo, it will undo the selection of the tool that you wanted as well. So I'm gonna do this. Now I don't have to worry about the sky actually, because even though you see it, it's not selecting it. It's already been taken away.
Huh?
Yes, when you do intersect with, you've already told it to subtract the sky, so the sky is subtracted out of it.
But it's
You'll
still
see that in
purple.
just a second. I know it's blowing my mind as well, but you'll see it. Now that I've done that, I have to go back to my luminous range. This is what we wanted. In my luminous range now, I turn it overlay off. Here's the range that is selected. I can now make my exposure a little bit brighter.
It's affecting the trees.
It's affecting the area up here. And let me go to my sky. Did I subtract the sky?
You know, that's what I was trying to tell you.
I was supposed to subtract the sky,
Right.
but if it did not, I can always go back to my brush.
Robert,
And
you did subtract the sky, but you left the trees as part of the mask. The trees are being affected because the trees
Okay.
are not brushed out.
Okay, I'm gonna brush them out now. There you go. I'm brushing them out now. There you go.
Barry, how did you see that the sky was subtracted?
That was that's Jim.
Oh, no, whoever asked the question.
Oh, Jim answered the question.
No.
Yeah, I answered the question. Robert had subtracted the sky and he used it with subtract select sky, and that's what took the sky out, but it left the trees in, and then he had
Okay.
not brushed the trees out yet.
Yeah. So I'm but this is what I wanted to have selected here, this range. And if I go back to my luminous range, and that's one of the things that's great about this, I go back to my luminous range, I can decide, okay, I really don't want the water to be brighter and see all of these selections right here. I mean, everything that I've done to make the adjustments, I can actually take this and move it over to there, and everything else has got brighter. Everything else that was selected got brighter. So the darker tones and the lighter tones. In this case, it doesn't work quite well because I subtracted a whole bunch of stuff out of here. But I've opened up just that the water, even though I made a selection over the entire image with a mask. So when you make a selection, the intersect tells it exactly what to do, what to affect.
Robert, I'm still having trouble understanding why you need the gradient filter. If you had not taken that step and just simply went to luminosity, wouldn't it have affected the whole picture?
Luminosity? No,
Yeah.
it would just sort of affected the tonal values.
Right.
Right. I was brought the graduated filter in there to show you how intersect works, not necessarily how to make the exact selection that you want, but the term intersect.
Okay.
What it actually means.
Okay. So you
Okay,
didn't really have to go through that step to lighten up the water, is
No.
what I'm
absolutely not.
emphasizing. Okay.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
To follow up on that, so then you don't have, I mean, other than for the purposes of explanation, you don't have to use a gradient, correct?
That's exactly right, 100%.
Okay, thanks.
But when it comes to intersect, the question is, what is it and why is it?
Right. Can you do me, could you do a favor if you have time, Robert? Could you process this without the gradient so that like normal people would do it?
The gradient one, I'm going to show you some processing. I'm simply explaining what these different pieces are and why they are.
Okay.
So Robert,
Yes.
other than for the explanation that you're using, when would you use the intersect? When would it be appropriate? When would it be helpful?
It would be helpful anytime you want to isolate exactly what you want to mask.
Okay.
I know that's ambiguous, but we're gonna see all of this stuff put into practice.
Okay.
But I'm explaining each of the parts. All right, if I can go a little bit further, just a little bit further. So we have intersect now, and because we have intersect, for instance, let's say I want to get rid of this. I want to get rid of this mask. Delete all mask. And I said, all right, I'm going to put in a radio tool. And in this radio, I'm going to rotate it by just getting the cursor close to it. And I want to select the water. And I'm gonna make the image smaller by Command minus or Control minus on the PC. And I'm gonna simply stretch this out like so. So that it does not include the sky. The inner circle is the main portion that's being affected. The outer circle is simply the feather. I can increase or decrease this feather using this red button here. And
Cool.
the feather goes in and out. If I want to rotate it, I can use this handle down at the bottom to rotate, or I can put the cursor close to the edge and it does the same thing. So let's pull this out a little bit. And within this entire, in fact, let me pull it out a little bit more and make this a little bit smaller. And by the way, in order to make something smaller and or bigger, with the radio, I simply grab the handle, make it bigger or smaller, or I can hold the Alt or Option key. I'm sorry, the is it Command key? No, it's the Option key, Alt or Option key, and I can move one side. And normally when you move it, it moves both sides. Okay, having said that, I've included in this selection here, and let's see what we're doing here. The whole thing is getting darker. Agreed?
Right.
Right. Okay, so we're back to our selection. Now, if I want to intersect, and I said, okay, I made the selection, but I only want that water to be brightened, I would go into this mask, click intersect mask with luminance range. That's one of the options. Because we're dealing with a brightness of a white water and a dark surrounding, I don't have color mask would not work in this environment. So I'm gonna just turn off the mask, select the water. This radio told me the area. Now, if I click on the water is telling me what?
That's what you're gonna work on.
That's what I'm gonna work on, absolutely.
But the sky wasn't in the radio and it got selected.
Yeah.
It's selecting the tonal value, but the only thing that will be affected is what's inside the radio.
Okay.
If I can interject, Brian, it's like if you remember from junior high math what a Venn diagram was, where you had two sets and they had an overlap, and what was included in the overlap, that's basically the concept, if that helps you visualize that.
Okay.
And now when I make my exposure change,
Yeah, see, it's not affecting the sky at all.
yes, even though
we see the light.
No, it's only affected. See, if I were to use any of those tools personally, I would use the radial because it's more controlled.
and the reason why I give you these options is not that one is more controlled than the other. It's not. It's that when some people love using the brush, some people love using the radial, some people love using the gradient. If I only gave you one and said this and only this, then you'd be missing out. I'm going to do that just to make sure the intersect work is showing you exactly what it is that I want. I'm going to get rid of this. And we saw just what happened, correct?
Right.
I'm going to get rid of this mask. I'm going to delete mask. And I'm going to take a brush.
Yeah.
Again, I'll come out of it.
Same thing.
I'm taking a brush. And I'm going to paint loosely. By the way, loosely. Same thing. And I'm going to say intersect with luminance range. And I'm going to pick the luminance range, just turn it off so I can see it. Pick it here. And you see how I paint it loosely.
Well, I like that one.
and it on the luminance range, pick this value, which I can then expand or subtract, and then make my change.
This is really cool.
That's neat. I like that way. That was neat.
And that's my point. That's why I was saying that there's going to be several ways that I'm going to show you. I am telling you, Jim is very good at visuals and making everything very, very perfect. I am very loose, but I will get there.
So I want to address one question that I have seen all this incredible stuff. When I was taking advantage of your educational services, you encouraged me to be somewhat indiscriminate about applying adjustments so that you would only do certain parts of it, so it wasn't always the same. So I would like you to address that concept.
Well, what we're doing right now is whenever you're making an image, there's a story to that image. The problem with the story when people put out images is that they want me to see the whole thing at one fell swoop. It's like when I see the whole thing, the whole picture, you want me to see the trees, the sky, the water, the color. You want me to see all those things. The brain doesn't take in information that way. It takes it in, but it also dismisses it because it has too many choices. How many times have you guys ever been to the restaurant? What's it called? It's got Cheesecake Factory. If you ever gone to Cheesecake Factory and looked at the menu, it's like 40 pages. It's down to 40 pages. So what you do is you pick the first one to three items because there's too many choices. Now, if Cheesecake Factory was to have 40 pages and each page had a beautiful picture of one of its item, you'd have 40 choices because each page would stand as an individual. When it comes to an image, we need to find something that grounds us, something that the author or the creator wants us to know about this image. You can have all the color and all the other things in there, but we have to start somewhere. And in this image, it's about the water. So if we bring up the value of the water and receive other values, then we're able to then move around the image rather than to just look at the whole thing and dismiss it. And I have this thing about visualization. And I used to say, give me 2.2 seconds of your time in this image, and I got you. I got you. If I got you that long, you're analyzing. But most of the time, we look at an image and keep going. And if we didn't have to be in the circumstance that we're in, as far as the camera club, where we do analyze the images, most of the images that come through, as they come through initially, we kind of pass on to the next one. So when we stop and do things like this, tear it apart, break it apart, and then tell the story by bringing value, color, brightness to the areas that are most important and receive the other areas and compose it, then we tend to get people to stay in the image longer. You'll see that, and I know I'm going on with this lecture, but let me stop. In just a second here. You'll see that once we do the changing up the images, Jim will recrop it, recolor it, and then such. We go, oh man, that's a much better image. And all of a sudden we stay there. So Brian, that's what I'm addressing, tearing the image apart and then making certain things more important, other things that are less important, and keeping those things that are important to you, the author, in the scene the way you want it, so that the rest of us can see it the way you wanted us to see it. All right, I know I went along on that. Now, having said that, I hope this intersect thing works. There's an understanding of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The last demonstration with the brush made it more clear than anything you've said all night.
Now, it made it more clear because I gave you options.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I started off, I gave you one thing and that was not clear to you. And then when I gave it to you, I think everyone assumed that was the only way because you kept asking about the gradient. Then I get to the last part of the intersect, which is the most important part. I was going to give you 3-4 different ways of doing it. And so by giving you those different options, then it satisfied everybody. Because I'm pulling it all together now.
Yeah,
But
I'll
had
give
I
you
not
one
done it
quick, I'll
I'm
give you a
sorry.
quick visual for conceptualizing that. Can you see that?
I can't see it. Your screen is not showing.
Yeah, any two masks. If you
Yeah.
make mask A and tell it intersect with mask B, the only thing that's affected is where the two masks touch each other or interact with each other. It's just that simple. That's the concept. Mask A,
Right.
mask B, tell it intersect, and it only affects where they both interact with each other. That's the concept. Any two masks. It could be any two masks.
Okay. Am I moving forward?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't mean that in a mean way. Am I moving forward? I just want to make sure everybody get their say in. Okay. Now I'm going to go to a set of images that were. And by the way, thank you everybody who sent in images. Brian sent in I think what is it? Buffalo Harbor. Charlene. Sherry. Is that Sherry or Charlene?
It's Sherry. It's both. Sherry's my nickname. Charlene's my real name.
Okay.
I like to go by Sherry.
That's probably why I didn't recognize. Okay, you sent in this first image. Brian sent in the second image for us. Let's see, who sent in the third image? Jack sent in this image for us.
Yeah.
Jack also sent in this next image for
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yes, Jack also. Jack sent you 3.
Oh, Jack sent me 3 images. Okay, great. And now we're going to move to putting this all together. Karen sent in this image. And in this image, oh, why is it not showing? Okay, should be showing now.
Here it is.
All right, which is the last one we're going to deal with, which is the color range mask. And in this color range mask, what we're going to do now is select something based on its color. Command plus. All right, so color range mask. Oh, I love the fact that I can write with my mouse. I'm just so happy.
Are we gonna get a pee-pee break?
In fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. Give yourself 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So how do you write on the picture, Robert?
I was hoping somebody would ask me that.
Yeah, you kept throwing it out. I figured I
Oh
better
man.
You didn't think it was going to be easy, did you?
Oh man, I was hoping somebody would ask me that.
Wait a minute, you can't do that while we're going to the bathroom.
I'll show you when you get back.
Take us with you.
Sure,
Whoa,
that's ugly.
Jack, I just like the way you think.
Well, she threw it out there. We might as well
Hey,
bat
I'm
it
just
back
saying.
at her.
I like the way you think. All right, who am I losing now? When I ask the question, who am I losing? Lee Wan, have I lost you?
Well, you got a few guys and a few girls.
Yeah. So all you guys would get this?
I'm getting it. I like it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, very informative. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was having a little trouble understanding what intersect was, and you really clarified it. The light bulb went on when you got to that last illustration with the radio gradient. That clarified it.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking, when am I going to use an intersection of two of these masks? But that made it absolutely clear how and when you want to use it. Can you intersect with 3? I mean, I don't know when
Jack,
I would need
you're showing your kinky side.
How's that?
You're showing your kinky side.
Oh, no. No, I think you got a kinky side.
Is the ability to do masking at all new in Lightroom? What's the new feature or the new set of capabilities that this new version provides?
First thing, it provides you with a visual of what it is that you're painting. So if you're making an adjustment, it's providing you with that visual. Second thing is providing you with along with the visual is the opportunity to name that visual. Whereas before you got little dots. And now you're able to actually name them and go through them, go back to them rather easily.
Oh, I see. I see.
Before you had to figure out which dot was which.
It sounds like that some or many of these capabilities were Photoshop capabilities that have been brought into Lightroom by the company.
In a sense, yes. In a sense.
Interesting.
I think you're not a Lightroom person initially.
No, I'm using DxO Photolab 5 to process my imagery.
Yeah, I use DxO as well. The only thing about DxO is its export is long.
Yes, it is, especially if you use Deep Prime.
Yeah, it's long.
Which is why you use it.
Yeah, I use DxO on high ISOs. I use DxO. I got introduced to this. I don't know, I keep saying Jim's name a lot, but I do credit him with a lot of stuff, but I don't tell anybody because I like to take the credit myself. But he introduced me to DxO with real estate.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the perspective correction is wonderful. I agree.
I think I showed it to you when it first came out.
Yeah, you showed it to me. Jim showed me how to use it.
Oh, yeah.
That's like Jack. You can point to it, but until the light bulb goes on, I'm totally out of that. Jim, how do you use it? How did you use it?
One of the primary reasons I started using it was for the perspective correction. At the time I started using it, nothing could touch it as far as perspective correction went, and lens distortion corrections.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I use it quite a bit. I use it on this job I'm doing. This multi-million-dollar house is being built, and I started it when it was nothing but pebbles and sand and woods, and now they're about ready to move into it. It's almost 2 years later. But the perspective corrections, the color acuity, the ability to select certain areas, yeah, it's second to none. And
For high ISO and astrophotography, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Did you say astro?
Yep.
I thought you just said ass photography. I was so I think we have everyone back. Yes? No? Yes. I think we have everyone back. Okay. So I'm going to go to the last one is color range. And in this case, we have a lot of colors that are very monochromatic in a sense. I mean, there are a lot of greens here. But what I want to do is I want to isolate in this particular image the brighter greens and give them a certain value. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to, again, I'm just starting over, color range. And in color range, what is saying that is I am choosing a color, whatever that color is. I can click on it one time and it will show me that I want that color. I can also add to that color by holding down the shift key and clicking and dragging across a range of colors. And that's what it'll do. It'll show me all of the range of colors that are within what I picked. So if you say to me, well, why did it pick the white, was that egret?
Yeah.
Bird.
Is because in its environment, it has a lot of yellow green in it. It's not as dominant as the first one that I picked, but it does have some yellow green in it. I am going to hold down, I believe it's the Option key or the Alt key, and I'm going to take that one away. But in that, you have this refinement tool. Once you make a color, and by the way, the color that it picked, the value is shown right here.
Oh, it showed, yeah, selected
Yeah, it's the
yellow.
color it picked. And I can refine or expand that like so.
So
And
when you did that, it took it away from the bird.
well, if it never touched the bird, actually.
The bird
So
was,
when I add to it, it'll touch the bird now. Let me illustrate what I'm saying here. If I can do a Command ++ space bar. All right. If I refine it, there is some, see that color is inside this bird right here, right on this edge. So I just took it away. But in the refine, I can add to by going to the right or subtract from by going to the left. So I'm going to add to this just a tiny bit more. And in that adding to, I'm going to use a brush, clicking on the mask, subtract with a brush, make my brush smaller by rolling my wheel and simply painting away just in that area right there where it bleeds over.
and into the little feathers.
I'm not going to go that deep.
What about into the feathers?
I'm not going to go that deep
Oh,
because it doesn't matter.
okay.
But it did go into this part.
That's really cool.
This part right here went into that. And by the way, I'm holding down the space bar in order to get the hand tool. It also went into the hair right in here. All right, I need to drink something real quick. So I've just used the brush in order to take it off. Now in that, Command -, and I'm going to now just simply because we selected a color, I want that color to be a little cooler in value, so it's not so hot. And instead of taking down the highlights and such, I'm going to start by changing the color of it to make it even just a darker value, giving it a density of blue. And then I'll bring down the highlights a little bit. Not much to it. And then the exposure just slightly. And in doing so, I'll create a new mask where I'll select subject. And in that selection, it didn't make a perfect selection. Command ++. Well, did better than I thought. There's your feathers.
Yeah, the little feathers.
I'm going to bring that value up just so it stands out. Before and after. Now, how long did that take?
Yeah, that really, I like the color. That really works well.
Thank you, Karen.
I thought that would be a good one for this demonstration.
Yes. All right. Now, having done that, let's see if we can. Oh, that's the bird I'm changing. I don't want to change the bird. I want to go to the this mask right here. And I just want to show you what it looked like.
Think one good.
Mhm. Is that phone?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, now we're gonna go to our next one. It's also color range.
Ah, good.
And there we go.
Oh, wow.
Color range plus luminous range.
Mm.
Hmm.
I wonder how long that bird lived.
Mm. All right. Let's get rid of this mask. All right. Now, when I look at an image,
You want to show the whole image, Robert? There.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I look at an image, one of the things that I do when I look at the image, I try to find out what color is in that image. And one of the ways of doing that is you go to your basic panel and you run the saturation all the way up. It says, hey, there's a lot of brown in that, or reddish orange. It's a lot of it. And I sort of like that. And I say the word sort of, which means that I think I'm, that would be nice in order to bring that value up. So rather than have it be dull as it was before. So if I take it back, and I know that's 100% too much, but if I take it back, I need something to make this image stand out other than just the impact of the bird on top of the alligator's back. So I want to bring a little bit more life to this. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to select the color range. And because that is a specific color, I'm going to go in and go to color range. And I'm going to say, hey, give me the value of this color. And I'm going to draw a little box. So it'll go across a number of values there. And it did pretty darn decent, but I want to refine that so that it's not so much on the alligators as much. So I'm going to pull it back off of the alligator and then go in with my brush by clicking subtract and taking a brush and then taking it off of the alligator.
So intersect doesn't work with this, Robert?
Intersect?
Hmm.
I'm doing color.
No, because exactly the opposite would happen.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm dealing with color range right here. This is
Okay.
what I'm wanting. And this is faster and easier
Okay.
for me. I'm rolling my wheel, by the way, on my mouse in order to make the mouse bigger and or smaller. I mean, not to make the brush bigger and or smaller. I said the mouse, but simple running this through, and I got a little bit on the bird, so I am going to click to enlarge that. Come in, make that a little bit smaller, and just take a little bit off. I don't need to be perfect with it. Now, I haven't done that. And I could have selected the subject and they would have selected this out and then hit the invert. If I had done that, it still wouldn't have selected brown or selected everything. And I would have still had to use the brush in order to do this. So it's just another way of doing it. Now that I've done that portion of it, because of the color range, I can now bring up the saturation in that just a little bit and give it a little bit darker value, just a tiny bit. And it'll make the make that water a little bit more visually pleasing to me. Now, on the other hand, I want to deal with these bright spots in the back here. And I'm going to use luminous range. So I'm going to use a brand new one. There's no intersect, just a brand new luminous range. And I'm going to target this light value. And in targeting that light value, I'm going to isolate this a little bit more by removing it from the water as much as I can. By moving the feather, by the way, this is the feather. This portion inside of here is the actual target.
Show that again, please, Robert.
All right. These two edges, these two
Oh,
triangles
it's the
here
feather.
are the
Okay.
feather. And when you hover over the block, you'll get a little handle, and that handle is
Yeah.
the selection. That's your selection. And this is the feather. So I'm reducing the feather. And by reducing the feather, I'm going to bring that back just a little bit so I can now then take the highlights and pull those down a little bit and bring my exposure down just a touch. And, oh, shirt tails. Okay, there we go. And yes, it looks a little muddy.
Can't
But
you warm that up?
I could do a whole bunch of things to it. And you'll see what I've done to it in the future, in just a moment here. But this is what I'm saying about the luminous range and the color range, how you can use them together. Not in this case, I didn't use them together, but how you can use more adjustments inside of Lightroom. So we're good on the luminous and color range.
Yep.
All right, very good. Now let's take a look. Well, we're almost there. We're almost to that point. Now here's some adjustments that I made. I'll go with fit and F. This is, whose image is this?
Fine.
Sherry's. Sherry's, I took your image and I cropped it a little bit. And in the cropping of it, I decided to do a split toning in this, meaning giving it to a gold tone on this road that leads you in, and I brought down the values as much as possible here. One of the things that I wanted to emphasize was this composition of this, these two guys back here, and I want to take away this guy right here. But I think that's best done inside Lightroom. There are several different ways you can make image, but compose this image, but I did not want to take away too much from your original thought. So.
I've tried many ways of doing this image and just wasn't there.
Your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I mean, it was a winter day and it was just gloomy and a little bit of fog because there's the lakes on the right-hand side. So there's fog coming over. The sun just came through this and just blasted the sun rays down on what you see is the concrete, and it was just neat, but I just can't get that feeling.
But I hear what you're saying. I'm asking you, how do you feel about this image?
Oh, it's getting there.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you're okay with the treatment I made?
Yes.
See, one of the things you have to learn that that whole question was all about me. It had nothing to do with you and your feelings. That was it. It takes a minute.
Okay, I want to go on the bottom though, I think.
Say again?
I would crop more up from the bottom.
Sure. As I mentioned, there are several ways of doing this. And I don't propose to know what you would have done because you guys all gave me raw files.
Right.
So because you gave me raw files, this is simply a demonstration on some of the treatments and how they got there. So having said that, I'm almost finished. Here are the masks that were used in order to get there. Luminous mask, dehaze with the gold, using one of the, there you go. A gradient on the top, a luminous mask also, a luminous mask, and to isolate the people, a mask, and then the what did I call it? Split toning. So those are the things that I used in order to get to this value.
Okay.
And having to go back just one and go to G and all photographs. I'll go to
Oh, yeah.
F, C.
Wow, what a big difference.
Yes.
Thank you. That's awesome.
So
So-
go back to the screen where you were showing all the masks. I have a question.
No.
So are you able to do like you can in Photoshop where you could turn off or on one mask and not the other?
Yes. Yes, you can. I can turn them on and off.
Okay. And then if you find a combination that you like, you're able to like export it in that condition, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And we're going back and I'm turning them off. And I don't know why one of them isn't turning off. Oh, all of them are off. Mask number 4. Oh, that one's still on. And oh, here we go. That gradient is on and the haze is on. Something else is on. But anyway, something else is in there. I don't know what it is, but that's what's going on here. All right, I'm going to go back, go to now to adjusted by me. I'll go to Brian's. Okay, this is your the image that was made to have an adjustment. I'm going to do what is it called? Fit. And I'm going to do F. What, I don't know what just happened. Oh yeah, okay. That's made the adjustment. I want you to make note of this area right here. And I'm going to go back to F, go to all photographs G, and go back to your original image. I believe it was this one and this one. And I'll compare those. Hit your tab key. All right.
Wow, you brought out that whole back and you had the leading line lead you to something. You opened it up in the back.
Right, and made sure that the colors were emphasized
Yeah.
down here on the ground. You notice the bright areas right over
Yeah,
here.
you got rid of them.
And they're all nice and fluid. So it is about these lines. Again, I would strongly emphasize, I do not know what Brian would have done. I'm simply saying that in using these masks, this is what I'm able to come up with.
Well, I can guarantee you Brian wouldn't have left it as it was as a raw file.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me go back and hit my tab key and let's go back to another one, which is going to be adjusted by me. And that's going to be, here's one. And I really want you to take a look at this image right here. Let me go to all photographs. This was sent in by, let's see.
It's me, Steve.
Steve?
Yep, that's mine.
Okay, Steve sent this one in. And there we go. And the letter C, compare, tab.
Wow.
Hey, Robert, how to select the subject? Use what tool?
Yeah,
Select.
it's underneath the tools, there is a tool called select subject.
Oh,
It's actually called select subject. In this, one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that this line that leads across, if you're able to see my cursor, the line that leads across did not drown out your, is that a moose?
Elk. It's an elk.
Elk. It did not drown out the elk. So I didn't think this whole image was just about the elk. I also thought it was about the colors as well. So, so I use certain values in order to bring up those colors, again, with the color range, luminous mask, and select subject mask in order to give these two values. I mean, these values in comparison to what the raw image gave me.
Yeah, I like what you did with it, Robert. That's exactly, I figured you'd have a lot of fun with this one. There was a lot of potential.
Let me tell you, there's no fun in this stuff right here. There really isn't. When it comes to me doing somebody else's image, there ain't no fun. Do you know why? Because I am trying to second guess what your intentions are.
Well, you came pretty close.
No, I exceeded your expectations.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Okay, I want to go to one more here. And this is going to be, let me go to G, and let me get out of the compare mode, and let me get to, where is it? It's this image right here. Oh, okay. And the letters F, and there is the final version of it. Let me go back to F again. Let me go to, and let's go to the, see, command, what's it called? This one, make a virtual copy. Okay, and then go to that and reset. Okay, it's it should be reset now. Okay, great. And I'll take those two and I'll compare those two and hit the tab key. And this was done entirely without making any of the adjustments in the basic panel, simply using the luminous value, the color range, and such.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
So you can adjust your images using those values. Let me go back to another one. This one and this one. And so I cropped this image and brought up values from the original, and then just gave it a little different composition in order to isolate. So there you go with that one. Those are all the ones that I thought I would have time. I mean, that I thought I knew I would be able to complete. I'm sorry, I did not get to this one or this one. Get out of the compare mode, get into the end mode, and this one right here. Let me take these two out. And I would have loved to have done them, but the only thing I didn't know, and I'm going to ask you guys right now, the authors of this one, that one in the eagle, who shot that one?
Sylvia.
Sylvia, what did you want to see in this one?
Well, I left it, as totally as it was, and with birds, like it was so far away, I would have cropped it in more and try to bring out, because the bird is eating a fish and pulling the pieces. So I basically would have wanted to kind of highlight what the bird was doing, so there was a close-up of the bird.
Okay, so there was no that as far as the exposure is concerned, it looks pretty decent right here. So there's no color or anything that you wanted other than to.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there would be some things to do, but I wanted to keep pretty much the bird the focus of the photograph. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't understand the intent. I didn't know the intent. I would say understand. That's a negative term. I just didn't know the intent. So I didn't know what to do with it other than what you just mentioned was to crop it and close. Whose image is this one? Middle one.
That's mine, Robert Allen.
Alan. Okay, I'm sorry I did not get to it. What is it you want me to know about this image?
How desolate the place is, and to capture the range from close in to the distant mountains in the background.
Right, and I wish I'd had time to get to it. And Liwen, she went to, I think she went to, I don't know what she went to, but I wanted to know what she want done to this one. And I would have, I just ran out of time. So that is my story, folk. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, get back to all of you. And that's what I had to present tonight. So
That was really good, Robert. When you
Yes.
first,
Were
When
you
you
going to
first-
show us how to write?
yes. Let me do that one more time before you guys go. Let me share my screen and I'll show you how to write. Thank you, Jim. Now it's very, very, very easy. And if I go to develop module, I pull out a brush. And in a brush, I make my brush very small and I make the feathering 0. And what I do is I go,
wow, that's really cool.
You're
There you
good with
go.
the mouse.
It's
Wow.
pretty good.
Ah,
so yeah.
So you've just created a mask of that area. Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, I can then make it,
Go away. Yeah.
I can color it, contrast, I can do anything I want. And by the way, because you asked, Fong,
huh?
because you asked, up here, it says select subject.
Okay.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
So having said,
So Robert, just anything that you do here in Lightroom, you can also do in Adobe Camera Raw. Am I correct on that?
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
When you first started, I went, huh. But boy, this is really helpful, Robert.
Yeah, so Robert, I've been a member of the club 7 or 8 years and I almost get to almost every technical night and there's never been a night where
Yeah.
more stuff that I know that I'm going to use over and over again than this one.
Yep, I agree. It makes it a lot of it very, very simple.
Yes, it does. Oh, one more comparison. I forgot to do this one. And this is the
The
That's the
short-lived bird.
yes. And you see the color in here is not as ruined as I made it out to be.
Huh?
On your color here. Okay, on your color, if I can go to the develop module on that particular color, if I let me take this off. If I reset this, okay, and so everything has been reset. And then I compared it. So all I'm saying is that the gray value is not like, so it's actually quite,
Yes.
it's quite even.
Barbara, I take this picture on the 12 o'clock lunch time. So I think over explode. So
Yeah. So you see how we're able to bring the values down.
how to bring this value down? Select object.
Luminous range.
Luminous range. Okay.
Yeah. Command.
This cannot use select object, just touch this place. Select object.
Select subject would select the whole thing. We only targeted the brightness.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Having said all of that, let me get out of this. Let me stop sharing, and then say to you guys, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak.
Thank you for
Thank
doing
you,
that.
Robert.
Thank you, guys. Stay warm,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you,
Night.
Robert. That was excellent.
That was
Thank you,
wonderful.
Robert.
Appreciate you.
Stay warm, everybody.
I know, get those plants covered.
Yeah.
Be fun.
Thank you again, Robert.
Thank you.
Night, night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Robert.
Robert, this need Raphael can edit, right?
Say
Raw?
goodnight, Dick.
Only Raphael.
No, it's raw file. You can do it with any file, but raw files work the
Raphael
best.
better. Okay.
Yeah, raw files work the best.
Hey, Robert, a
Yeah.
question. So since this similar as a Photoshop, which one would you like to use?
You mean as
Which
far
one?
as,
I mean, because there's some functions, obviously it's in the Photoshop, and this make life easier, but compare Photoshop.
Photoshop is still hands down the most control.
So Photoshop still control more, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Thank you. You really give a great presentation.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, good. Well, good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Good night.
Good night.
That was good. That opened a lot of eyes. A lot of light bulbs turned on tonight.
Well, that's, if I can say this out loud, that's our aim,
Mm-hmm.
to turn on light bulbs. So it's kind of how it works.
Yep, I can see that happening tonight. That was good.
So, yeah, I say after your freaking presentation, when you weren't here, it's like, dude, I got to find a way to at least come close.
What presentation are you referring to, by the way?
The one you did a video presentation.
Oh, was that for the motion in photographs when I couldn't be there for the meeting?
That's correct.
I made a video. Oh, okay.
Yes. Oh man, everybody was raving about that thing.
Oh, that was and that was a lot for me, just teaching myself some concepts with video too. So
Well, I'm just saying it was
oh, good. I'm glad people liked it then. I wasn't around to see it happen.
yeah, well, I'm just saying I had to do something to at least get close.
Oh, that was good tonight.
Yeah.
Yep. That was really good. I was happy to see that.
Yeah. I tell people when you sweep a floor in a room, people will start from one end to the next and then sweep it all the way to the next end. Then they'll put everything together and then throw it in the trash, scoop everything up and throw it in the trash. Me, I sweep from all four corners plus the center and then back to all four corners. But at the end, it still goes in the trash, all neat.
Mm-hmm.
So I will start off, everything will sound like it's scattered. And that's one of the reasons why I was saying to Diana and the rest is that I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there.
All right. Oh, hey, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.